Hey guys, it's Tom here from Pro Direct Running, and we're currently out in the very sunny Valencia with New Balance, which means we've been able to get our hands on the brand new Supercomp Elite V4 nice and early. So in this video, we're going to be giving you a full wear test of the shoe and let you know what's new on the 4th iteration of this beast. Let's get into it. Now then, the first thing to mention right off the bat is that from a visual standpoint, this is clearly not just an incremental update where there might have been subtle tweaks to the upper or different configuration of the outsole. This is essentially a redesign from top to bottom. New Balance have had a solid race day resume when it comes to their running shoes over the past few years, with the RC lineup transitioning into the Supercomp franchise. However, after running in this shoe, I've got to say that this is by far the best one yet. It's lighter, we've got a new midsole compound, an improved fit, and basically every single part of this shoe has been reworked. So without further ado, let's jump into some of the tech. Now, starting off with the heart and soul of the shoe, and probably the thing that you're going to be most intrigued about, New Balance are actually debuting a brand new midsole compound with the Supercomp Elite V4, with a full-length PIBA midsole being used for the very first time. We're right up to the max legal limit of 40mm of stack height in the heel and 36mm in the forefoot for a fairly low, for super shoe standards, 4mm drop. Now, I really like this. As a midfoot to forefoot striker, I feel like I just get a little bit of a smoother transition. That, coupled with the aggressive geometry and the rocker that we've got in the shoe, really makes it feel very, very smooth through the gait cycle for me. The foam itself is incredibly soft both in hand and underfoot, and the angular design of the geometry that makes the shoe look more like a sculpture than a running shoe is all there just to help with weight saving. And speaking of weight, with these alterations to the midsole, we've actually got an overall 10% decrease in weight over its predecessor, with the SE Elite V4 coming in at around about 218 grams in a men's sample size, making it incredibly competitive on the scales. Obviously, we've still got a full-length carbon fiber plate running throughout the midsole of the Supercomp Elite V4. However, New Balance have tuned this slightly and it's now a little bit thinner, and also features some ripples, which you can see when taking a closer look at the outsole of the shoe, which further help to cut down on weight, but you won't sacrifice any of that rigidity that makes the shoe so propulsive. Moving on to the upper, and one of the things I'm happiest about with the Supercomp Elite V4 is the fact that we've now got a more traditional fitting upper in comparison to the more booty style construction that we saw on V3. For me, one of the hallmarks of a decent fit in a super shoe is solid lockdown without too much extra wriggle room, and I think that New Balance have really nailed it with this one. You got a pleasant amount of padding in the heel counter without it being overdone. The upper is a really nice thin mono mesh material, and the tongue sits fairly well on the top of the foot. If I had to be hypercritical, I think the tongue could potentially be fully gusseted, and that's something I would love to see in future iterations. And I also think we could probably get away with using a slightly thinner material for the tongue, maybe with just a little bit of padding on top to stop any excess pressure from the laces. Outsole wise, the main thing that you're going to notice when flipping the Supercomp Elite V4 over is the massive void that you've got in the mid to rear foot section of the shoe. Obviously, as well as this being a weight saving feature, in very unscientific terms, it also helps the shoe store a little bit more energy, as well as allowing the carbon plate to flex a bit more, which should just improve that responsiveness and the propulsion underfoot. Rubber coverage wise, we've got a really healthy slather here, and the first session that I did in the shoe was on a very cold, wet, windy winter's day, and I didn't have any issues when it comes to slipping and sliding around tight corners. So I think you can be pretty happy with what you can expect from a durability and traction standpoint with this shoe. So with all of the tech out of the way, let's get into the juicy bit and talk about how the SE Elite V4 actually performs on the run. I suppose then we should probably start off with the fit of the shoe, and for full transparency, I actually ended up going up half a size with the SE Elite V4 compared to the V3. Now, this was partly because the booty construction of the V3 was a little bit tight for me in a regular UK 8.5, but also I just find that personally for me, New Balance shoes fit better in a UK 9, so that's what I've got in the SE Elite V4. Having said that, I find the stepping comfort of the shoe to be really pretty good. I didn't have any issues with hot spots or too much room in the toe box. It was just about right for me. Bit of a Goldilocks moment, I suppose, when lacing it up for the first time. The session itself was a pretty bread and butter 5 by a mile, but I was prescribed to progress the pace from the first mile all the way down to the 5th. So I started at about 5:50 per mile and finished around about 5:20. So it was a nice way to see how the shoe felt at a cruisier pace, all the way down to what is probably about my 10K pace. For me, the most notable thing about this all new fuel cell midsole, which is now fully PIBA based, as we mentioned in the beginning, is just how soft it feels underfoot. If you're someone that prefers a firmer, closer to the ground, more responsive ride, then this may not be your first pick. But for me, someone who absolutely loves doing all my jogging in a 1080 V13 at the moment, which is probably about the softest daily trainer out there, this feels right at home and definitely to my taste. But just because it feels lovely and buttery and soft underfoot, that doesn't mean that it slips into that feeling of mushiness that you get with some very, very compliant compounds out there. And I found that cruising at 550 per mile felt really, really nice. But when I started to pick the pace up as the session went on, I was surprised by how lightweight and how easy it was to start dropping down to those quicker paces in this shoe. I feel like I've been saying this a lot recently, especially with the influx of really, really good super shoes to the market. But I can say with a solid degree of confidence that if I had a race tomorrow and this was the only shoe that I could wear, I would not be disappointed or stressed out by any stretch of the imagination. And in fact, I would definitely now put the SC Elite V4 right in that very, very top tier of super shoe. All in all, I think if you're looking for your next race day shoe and you want something that's a bit more versatile and can handle marathon pace all the way down to 5K pace, you've got a pretty bloody solid option with the SC Elite V4. So that's just about going to do it for today's video. Let us know what you think of the updates to the SC Elite V4 down in the comments. And if you want to get your feet in a pair, you can do so very soon at Pro Direct Running. Bosh!